so we'll just call the meeting to order at 3:10.
Okay.
And I do know that Tracy Costin is in the call. Hi, Tracy. Thank you for being here. And it's just, I think I'm the only other one
Yes.
with you. So since I don't have the agenda pulled up, do you want to just go through whatever?
Sure. Is it okay?
Yes, please. Thank you so much.
So the first item is there any public comment? Okay, I think Tracy shook her head no. And then so the next item on the agenda is just the independent study contract update regarding the staff training. I met with Dana, Linnea, and Monique from Meadowlark, High Desert, and Vasquez High School. And the great thing was I knew Meadowlark was doing because I had talked to Dana because she had a lot of questions just about the paperwork piece. Is a lot. And so I got to meet with all three of them together, and they got to share kind of what they were doing, best practices. And all three sites actually started doing this and using it for short-term independent study as soon as they got the new contract.
Awesome.
So it was actually a really good meeting. We made a couple changes just to make nothing really to the contract, just the way the homework is gathered at the high school and the 6th and 7th grade, or the 7th and 8th grade, where they have separate classes. It was easier to use a form that showed separate classes, and then for the self-contained teachers just to use the form as it was. And so yeah, then like I said, the meeting went really well. I did let them know that before school starts, I wanted to just do another quick update with them, just to see if they had any new questions, just to also kind of reiterate the process and make sure too that they had an access to me and even meetings together as they move forward, if they need support with like, hey, I'm finding this issue or this issue, so that we could all three solve it, or they could three solve it together, so that we have that continuity between the sites.
Mm-hmm. And that's, I think the goal is to definitely have the continuity between the sites, and to make it easy for staff and parents. If it's not easy for parents, they are not going to do it, and it kind of defeats the purpose. So I think, with this plan in place, we're going to see a rise in our ADA. But if it's not easy, they're gonna not do it. So really making sure that it's easy for parents and that staff is really pushing it out. If they don't know about it, they're not going to do it either. So
Right,
making sure that staff is pushing it out there and making sure that everybody knows how easy it is and how beneficial it is to your student and all that, we're going to see a huge improvement.
Yeah, and another thing that we added that's new since the last time we talked is at the beginning of the school year, I'm still working with Caesar and Alex, it's new, to see if we can get that document online as part of our online enrollment package. If we're not able to get it online before school starts, just because timelines right now, the sites still have some papers that get signed in person when parents come in. So we'll have every parent sign it ahead of time, so that if their student does need to go on independent study, they won't need to sign it, it'll already be signed. And that actually aligns with the instructional continuity plan. That was a recommendation from CDE, is to make sure you have your independent study contract signed ahead. In the event all our students have to go out for some reason, like a COVID situation where everyone had to go out, that they're already signed. So that was kind of interesting and new.
So you're not talking if I need to take my kids, if my kids get the mouse flu today and we're going to go out and I say, okay, just use the independent study contract we already signed, so that's there. You're not talking about the little onesies and twosies. You're talking about in case something massive happens to where we all have to go out. We'll just use that.
You can use it for the onesies and twosies too, because you're going to need to get that form signed every single time. So the idea is that if everybody signs one at the beginning of the school year, now parents will know that this is an option they have if their students are out for short term.
Okay.
They're out for 4 days with the flu and then also makes it easier for the attendance clerks because the forms are already signed. And then we will start this is another thing we talked about, is creating just like a little half sheet that the principals can put up on their weekly mailers that go out there, they're online, their blasts, letting parents know what short-term independent study is. So that if their kids are sick for a short amount of time, as long as they're doing the homework, which is generally posted online, then the form gets filled out. if the parents already signed it, now the form is just being passed at the district office. And now if you are using it, when you say you use it for your students, the attendance clerk will have you sign a new one in the event that you need one again coming up. So we always have one on file.
And having that signature date be ahead of time is going to be okay with the auditors?
Yeah, it is okay. As a matter of fact, for the only independent study contract that has to be signed at the time of the independent study is long-term. Anything, and that's defined as anything at 16 days or over. So
Mhm.
if you come and you know it's going to be longer than 16 days, I actually need you to come in and sign it. Otherwise, we have that flexibility.
Okay,
Yeah, and when they sign at the beginning, they won't sign a date on it. They're just gonna sign the independent, in the event that they need it for short term, or as it turns out, we put that in place for short term, but it's also recommendation for an instructional continuity plan. So it kind of serves two purposes. So I know Arcadia and some other districts were doing that. At first, I didn't really understand why until I did some more digging. I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
okay. Awesome. That sounds good to me.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the next item.
Yeah, can we just put that on the list to follow up on maybe late August, whatever our meeting is in after school starts. And then we'll get just an update on if it's been used, any changes that needed to be made, any, follow-up
Okay.
questions that people have. Either August or September, one of those meetings would be great to follow up on that.
Okay, I put a note here and I'll put it on the next agenda and then decide if I need to move it to September or not.
Perfect.
And I'll ask I'll check in a few days before with this is supposed to be posted like a week before. I'll check in with our site staff and say, hey, can I get an update August or September better? And I'll put it on the appropriate agenda.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. And then the instructional continuity plan. So what the instructional continuity plan is becomes part of our district-wide comprehensive safety plan, as well as our site safety plans as well. And the state is requiring that we create a continuity plan for instruction in the event that there are any natural disasters that would keep us out of school in excess of 10 days. It requires that notification come from the district within 5 days as to kind of just updates and stuff, although we would be doing them immediately. So I'm going to go over the headings and I am going to read some of it just so you can kind of get the gist of what the purpose is and kind of the all-inclusiveness and the reasons why. So let's see. I have a lot
So
of,
this is if we're going to be closed for 10 days or more,
yeah.
like we were at COVID. This is not for if Vasquez has a power outage for 3 days, but the other schools are open, correct?
So, yeah, so when we have a power outage, yeah, it's for that as well. Say we have a power outage and the school is gonna be closed for 3 days. We have to turn in and submit a Form J-13A, which is a waiver. And so which is a waiver for the ADA, so we get paid. And beginning 26-27, which is this new school year coming up. No, that's next year.
That's the following year.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
we
we're
need to
25, 26.
Okay, well, this is funny. So I've been being told that it was this school year. But according to the document that I'm reading in front of my face, it says beginning the fiscal year 26-27. You have to have this in place. This is so interesting. It's just so funny that they're so far, like, okay, because it has to be in place in 2025, this document, for us to get a Form J-13A waiver request beginning fiscal year 26-27. So I actually thought it was this year, and that's how we get that. That's how we don't lose the ADA.
Okay.
So
Sorry, go ahead.
it could be used in it really is a blanket for any kind of natural disaster. Could be electricity, it could be a flood, it could be a COVID. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So let me just explain. So in response to any significant loss or disruption caused by a natural disaster for students and staff who are part of the Acton-Agua Dulce Unified School District, we have created this learning continuity plan. At the heart of this plan is the goal of returning to in-person instruction as quickly as possible once AADUSD is able to meet all conditions of reopening. This learning continuity plan rests upon the vast majority of our students returning to in-person instruction as soon as possible, while providing access to an emergency home learning plan for those unable to come to campus because they have lost housing or have health conditions that prohibit a speedy return to Acton-Agua Dulce. And so some of the protocols as it relates to two-way methods of communication. So how are we going to communicate with our community? Would be short messaging services, which is texting. We do have that ability through Blackboard, phone calls, emails, the school portal, which is Blackboard, social media, flyers, and also I define the portal as Blackboard. In the event of a natural disaster that would have a significant impact on students, families, staff, and community, Acton-Agua Dulce will maintain two-way communication by addressing urgent concerns through emails, text messages, and/or phone calls. Direct communication will be provided through an automated system on important topics and urgent matters. In the event of an emergency, we will work closely with law enforcement. We will balance our duty of care and safety to students with the desire to effectively communicate accurate information with all stakeholders. Unofficial social media makes this challenging. Please trust that communications from AADUSD will be factual and timely while prioritizing immediate safety of our students and our staff. Updates and information will be provided through our website, newsletters, and district Facebook pages. And then there's support for unique needs addressed, which have to do with social, emotional, mental health, and academic needs. There's a timeline as it relates to access to instruction. As required, AADUSD will provide access to in-person or remote instruction as soon as practical, but no more than 10 instructional days. But because of the way this will be set up and some of the work that'll be done before, we would get our kids up and running, whether it's remote or if they need access to paper lessons, we will have that stuff ready for them sooner than that. The district will begin working with site staff as well as the AADA Teachers Association to consider the need for an MOU regarding work conditions for staff. Instruction will be provided in person if feasible and via online instruction. Teachers will be provided professional development to plan and implement standards-based instruction with the least disruption to staff and their families. And then there's conditions for resuming access to in-person instruction. And then there's a description, and it's pretty long as it relates to remote instruction. And it breaks it down into an emergency home learning plan for TK and K, for first and second, third and fourth, fifth and sixth. And for those with internet access, there are some varying options per grade level. So there's a list of those and access to some of these apps we have through Clever on our site, district website already. And then there's an emergency home learning plan for 7 through 12 as well. That really relies a lot on Google Classroom, which 7 through 12 they're using that now. There's access to instructional materials addressed as it relates to expectations of access and equity. AADUSD will communicate via the communication plan to students and families with learning modalities, which learning modalities are available and where in-person instruction will occur in the event any campuses are open during the emergency event. School assignments and academic resources will be available online. And then as far as it relates to instructional plans, I asked to please refer to the emergency learning plan. Access to schoolwork through Google and Acellus remote instruction is currently in place for virtual and in-person instruction, and for submitting homework to classroom teachers. AADUSD will consider multiple remote platforms to ensure a smooth transition during any emergency. And then temporary reassignment. If Acton-Agua Dulce Unified School District provides supports to pupils and families to enroll in or be temporarily reassigned to another site or a school district, county office of education, or a charter school, in the event of an emergency or disaster disrupts in-person learning. So this came from, and these are recommendations from the California Department of Ed. Some of this came from some of the work that happened in Paradise Unified up north when they had that fire, and a lot of people lost their homes and the schools were burned down. Again, it's a really small school district up there. They worked with a neighboring school district and were able to get their kids into schools while the district took care of what they needed to take care of. I mean, hopefully that would never become, necessary for us, but so at least we'll have a plan. And then the communication protocols, I talked about a little bit before, the two-way communication process. Technology readiness, I talked to Kai today. Again, we have Google Classroom and we have Acellus. We could use all the Acellus license is if we decided we wanted to use that. Like for all of our students, we would have to look at the cost of that. But we do have Google Classroom and there are other learning platforms also like Canva. So we would look at the different possibilities that would best meet the needs of our students and our staff. And as it relates to Chromebooks, the business office felt like we already had enough Chromebooks in the event that we would need Chromebooks in the event of an emergency like this. I'm on page 7 of 10. This addresses equity and access and how we will address students with individual education plans. I put in here that the coordinator of special education services and the resource specialist would work together to ensure all services are provided to students and all IEP meetings are conducted within compliance guidelines. Assessments will be conducted virtually and in person as needed and appropriate. AADUSD will provide and maintain all accommodations and individualized education plans for students who need them and ensure that the instructional continuity plan can meet the needs of our diverse learners. We also address the needs for English learners in much the same way. And then professional development is setting out how we would create professional development opportunities and support our students, our teachers in the transition as it relates to, providing academic and standards-based instruction. So we would provide that to our teachers as well. We talked about the mental health and the physical and mental health professionals being on campus and being available online. As it relates to access to backup water medications in the event of an emergency, we would work with the district nurse closely with staff and families to ensure a power supply for and restock necessary medicines and locate alternative sources of electricity in the event of outages. I know some districts also had students who could come to campus, but they didn't have refrigeration due to the fires in the La Cañada and Pasadena area. They had kids bring their medications if they needed refrigeration in like lunch pails with ice. So I think we could set up something at the site where we could keep things cold like that. Again, we would work with our nurse for that. And then the last part is kind of concludes with AADUSD maintaining continuity of other support services, including special education, counseling, after school programs, and access to kitchens and food services, and adapting these services to the online or hybrid environment when necessary. And then there's some resources from the National Center for Homeless Education to support disaster preparation for our homeless students, and also lessons from real life. Again, their McKinney-Vento liaisons resource, which is also for our homeless population. That's pretty much it. Do you have any questions?
Awesome. That looks like a ton of work. I do have questions. I'm gonna go ahead and ask Tracy if she has any questions first. My screen just went black. Tracy, do you have any questions about that? Okay. So this plan is if we have to go out on COVID, if there's a major fire, a huge disaster, which is great. And it's a lot of work for something that we are going to hope that we never have to use. What our schools experience is loss of power. And I do remember that when I was in elementary school, we had a big flood at Acton School and we couldn't go to school after coming back from winter break. How does this apply to like the onesies and twosies and just one site being down? Like, let's relate it to what happened to Vasquez this last January when those kids didn't come to school for what, 10 days or 11 days, something crazy.
I think it was.
And yes, I understand that we need this in order to get the ADA back, but how are we getting those instructional minutes for those kids? How are we going to house them if we have kids that do want to come to school? How are we going to give them? How does this relate to something like that that's more
Yeah.
closely like, we know we're going to have power outages this coming school year. How are we going to address those?
Yeah, there was some, when I was going through it, there is some that talked about using other school sites. And so
Mhm.
we've already kind of talked about that on the back end here as well. If we're down, like what happened at Vasquez is we would work with, I really think it was Vasquez. We'd reach out first to High Desert if they have power, just because you have kids closer in age than at Metal Arc. And again, we would get some of our kids up on if they had access to online and that worked for them, we would get them up on online, but I know all of our families don't have access to online. So it would be, we would work with Michelle and set up rooms as quickly as possible so our kids could go there. We had 2 open campuses during that time. So
Yeah.
it
So,
already.
so
we've already
using
talked
this,
about-
I love that we're all on the same page and already talking about it. I think that's fantastic place to start. So using this document, can we put together something that says, if this school is out, but this one is open, A, B, and C will be available. And if this is out, so that everybody in our community knows what our plan is, knows that we have a plan. And then when power goes out at 6 p.m., we're not scrambling to get this information out and it's not new to everybody and have everybody go, I didn't know, to have something in place. If this happens, then we will do this. If this happens, then we will do that, and make it very specific.
Okay,
And right now I'm specifically talking about power outages because that's what we know is going to happen. We know we're not
Right.
getting away from those.
right.
And then we can use that plan if Vasquez floods, if Vasquez doesn't have water, if Vasquez, and I'm using Vasquez, but supplement with every other school. But if they don't have running water on a campus, what are we going to do? Then we can refer to the power outage plan and say, this is what we do when there's something preventing us to come to school for one day. How do we, and I know it could be a flow chart, it could be a document, a spread, however you think it's easiest to get out to our community. If this happens, this is what we're going to do. And what I would love to incorporate in that is a timeline of communication. So in your document, you spelled out how the communication is going to come out, but a timeline of communication. We will contact you by 6 a.m. We will contact you by 6 p.m. If school, if the power is still out at 8 p.m., we will not have school the next day. If the power comes on at 6 a.m., we will have school, that kind of
Yeah, I
spell
think
it out
those
to where,
timelines get created based on the situation, like we did even with this, and so
yes.
it's hard to put that in a document before because you don't know what's gonna happen, but I know with this last one, there were like, hey, we'll let you know by 6 a.m. because we were waiting to hear from Edison.
Okay, so have 6 a.m. be our thing. And yes, things change by situations. So if we could start with power outages first. If there's a power outage and this school is closed, we'll let you know by this time. So that's what I'm saying, yes, by situation, but if this happens, then we will do this. If this
Okay.
happens, then we will do this.
I mean, we can just create automatic 6 AM, 8 PM updates. Even if I don't have any new information, I can update you at 6 AM and say, I don't have any new information. If you want to create something,
Whatever,
you know what I mean?
I
Like,
don't want to put the parameters right now in this meeting and then, like, well, Brianna Taxoni said blah, blah, blah. That's not fair to anybody. But if district staff, administration, if you want input, then we can sit down at a different meeting and, talk about and give input that way. But I don't want to put parameters right here, right now.
so
That wouldn't
we
be
can meet
fair
with the
to
safety
staff.
team, but they won't be back, until, because we have a safety committee, but they won't, most of them be back till school starts. But I can
Okay,
kind of put together some ideas like, hey, if we want to create regular times to check in with the community, what are your thoughts about how we would do that? And get a bunch of
and
people's
and the
ideas.
checking in was just one part of it.
Yeah,
It was,
agree.
more, where are we gonna house children?
So I
If
put
High
house
Desert's down,
children
but
too.
Vasquez is open, are we gonna house children in their gym? Are we going to house children at Meadowlark or in
Yeah, the
the
housing piece,
NPR at,
I think we would talk about in cabinet, and we meet every week. And so I probably, we like to follow up on these meetings in cabinet.
yeah, that would be a
I think
perfect
that,
place to start.
yeah, because I mean, it was even part of bargaining that if a site was gonna be closed, teachers still needed to be considered working. And that, I think it was even bargained that, we were short, we could have teachers assigned, like say, what happened at Vasquez? You're at home, but we need you at High Desert. You could actually be assigned to High Desert during the time of the outage. I think that actually was already bargained in our contract, and Jackie's nodding. So some of this work kind of has been pre-done because we have been talking about it, but I think like making it a little bit more clear and direct where if Vasquez is closed, we go here. So when we meet in cabinet next week, I'll bring up kind of our conversation and this brainstorming, if you will, about what are some ideas and get some input from Eric and Kai, and also then from Ernesto, like really meet with facilities and see, but that is our plan. And so we are working in that direction. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely having a plan set and in place. I love that there's the conversations going on and everybody's already talking about it and thinking about it. But it's time to put those conversations, down on paper and make
Yeah.
sure that everybody has that information and we're all on the same page and we all know what to expect. Um, and like I said, hopefully we won't have to use your beautiful document that you just shared with me. That looks like a lot of work. So thank you very much for putting that together. But definitely we'll have to use the onesies and twosies. So let's make sure that our community has all of the information that we've been talking about. That would be great.
Okay. We'll do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we'll go ahead and put a follow-up to this on for a future agenda as well. And we'll just talk about, we'll have this as a follow-up, probably on every agenda for us, because it's really important. So, I think that would be great.
Okay. Sounds good. Those are the only items on our agenda for today.
Okay,
So for future items, and it may not be the next meeting, but I am hearing an update on independent study from our site staff as to kind of how that's going. And then, I mean, by the time we meet again, so I could definitely put on our next one in August, an update on the ICP as far as it relates specifically to, in this instance, we would do this and this, and we can put it in this document. There's spaces in this document for me to add notes. And that way it would be nice to have it housed together, because then this becomes part of our district-wide comprehensive safety plan, which gets posted on the website. Now, that's not how we're going to communicate with parents, because again, that's super hard to find.
right.
So we'll find another way to do that. Like I have a communication document that I want to create that just talks about what our communication plan is in the district and how we'll reach you in the event of an emergency. There aren't specific timelines. It's more of, if there's an emergency, as soon as I have information, sometimes, and I've been at school sites, unfortunately, where there have been some like very serious student-based emergencies. And it was really hours before we had enough information to share, because it took a whole team. But I think that's what makes it hard as far as like putting an exact time, but still having some time frame where you're at least reaching out and saying, you know, we are aware, we are working on this situation. We don't have any information we can share with the public yet. So the public knows that it's not just radio silence. You know, that sometimes
Yeah,
that's
that's
reassuring.
definitely important.
Yeah. So I actually like the idea of creating something, but like I said, you know, we have a safety committee, so we can, when we do want to make sure that we get input from all of our educational, you know, related people or stakeholders, if you will. And like I always think students, we like to get student input. I like to get parent input. And at the PTO and PTSO meetings that I attended, a few of those this year for the LCAP, a lot of our community members come to those meetings as well. So so we can do as far as communicating this. In addition, this safety plan becomes part of the school safety plan, and that school safety plan is updated each year with the leadership of the principal and input from the school site council. So school site councils, as it relates individually to each school, might have some additional pieces to add to this, just to make it more comprehensive for our community.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I definitely think this is worth following up on, and we have a lot of good information going around. So thank you very much for that. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you. That's all I have.
All right. I don't have anything else. So
Alright.
I don't have the agenda in front of me. So if you, that's it on the agenda, future plan, we can close out the meeting, right?
We can close out, we could do our next meeting in August. If you guys are okay with this Tuesday, I'll continue. I worry that it's a little stressful because IT has to get this meeting, and it seems like for some reason facilities is right after this one. So I don't know if we want to change the day, or should I leave it on Tuesday for now? I'll talk to facilities and see if I can find a Tuesday so we don't fall on the same day. I don't know. What do you thoughts?
I'm good with any Tuesday. It doesn't,
Okay, so
I'm
we'll
good
keep
with
it
whatever.
Tuesday. I know for us, when I created it, I did like, I don't know, the second or third Tuesday, so it's super consistent. And so I'll see if they know when theirs are, so I can plan accordingly, so. You know, I know Caesar has to run
So
straight over.
it's always been the third Tuesday.
Yeah,
It's
for
always
us,
been the third Tuesday, but this is the fourth Tuesday. So we can move it to this one because facilities
yeah,
is usually the third Tuesday as
to-
well, right?
well, they're actually today, so maybe that's what happened.
I think they moved theirs.
We moved ours
They moved-
because. I
We
think
moved ours, they moved theirs,
Oh.
they copied.
we moved ours, I forget why, I think. De Jesus.
You were at a meeting far away.
Oh, that's right, I don't know where I was. I was at the FIEP training
Oh,
in Castaic, that's where I was.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna leave it on the third Tuesday, and then I'll try to collaborate with Kai, so we don't have the conflict in time.
Okay,
No.
we did move it up to 3 and theirs starts at 4, so it shouldn't be too much of a conflict now, but if you want to move it up to 2:30 and have theirs at 4, that's fine with me too. Either way.
Okay, I'll let you know. And then do you
Okay.
wanna we'll do the third Thursday in August after school starts, we skip
The
July?
third Tuesday,
Okay, I'll send you an invite.
yes.
Okay.
And yeah, let's skip July because we're good.
Okay,
So the
Alright.
third Tuesday in August at 3 p.m.
we'll do 3 PM, yep,
Okay,
okay. Thank
sounds
you.
good. And I'll see you Thursday.
You'll see us
Alright.
Thursday, you will.
All
Thank you,
right.
Tracy.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right. Bye, guys.
All right, bye-bye.